The cameras had been rolling for 3 hours straight on the Hong Kong soundstage when the air conditioning failed. August 1972. The temperature climbed past 95 degrees, thick humidity turning the cavernous warehouse into a pressure cooker. 300 cast and crew members, stuntmen, lighting technicians, costume designers, extras dressed in period clothing, all waited in the suffocating heat while Bruce Lee, 32 years old, 5'7", 135 pounds of coiled intensity, prepared for the next take of Enter the Dragon. But in less than 90 seconds, everything would stop. The set recreated the interior of Han's underground fortress, concrete walls painted to look like ancient stone, elaborate props positioned with millimeter precision, cables snaking across the floor carrying enough electrical current to power a small neighborhood. The smell of fresh paint mixed with human sweat and the metallic tang of hot lighting equipment. Somewhere in the back, a generator hummed its mechanical complaint. Bruce stood in the center of the fighting arena, barefoot, wearing only black training pants that clung to his legs. His torso glistened under the lights, every muscle fiber visible beneath skin that seemed stretched too tight over his frame. He moved through a sequence of practice strikes, each motion economical, precise, explosive, testing the choreography one final time before the cameras rolled. His breathing was controlled, meditative. The chaos around him seemed to exist in a separate dimension. Director Robert Klaus watched from behind the camera, one hand shading his eyes against the brutal lights, the other holding the script that had been rewritten 4 times in the past week. Warner Brothers had invested everything in this film. Bruce Lee's first Hollywood production. The movie that would either prove Asian actors could carry American blockbusters or confirm every executive's prejudice that they couldn't. Near the craft services table, a young crew member named Tommy Chen, 19 years old, fresh out of film school, working his first major production, struggled with a piece of equipment. He'd been hired as a lighting assistant 3 weeks ago, grateful for any opportunity to learn the business. His hands trembled as he adjusted a C-stand that seemed determined to collapse. The heat wasn't helping. Neither was the pressure of working on a set where every minute of delay cost thousands of dollars. Bruce noticed him, always noticed everything. That was the thing about Bruce Lee that unsettled people who worked with him. His awareness extended in every direction simultaneously, like he processed reality through some expanded bandwidth normal humans couldn't access. He'd once explained it in an interview as emotional awareness, the ability to sense not just physical threats but psychological ones, to read the energy in a room the way others read faces. Tommy was struggling. Bruce could see it in the kid's shoulders, hunched with tension that had nothing to do with the heavy equipment. The way he glanced around nervously, checking if anyone noticed his difficulty. The slight tremor in his hands. Fear. Inadequacy. The particular shame of youth trying desperately not to fail in front of people whose respect they craved. Bruce had been there, remembered being there. The early days in America when casting directors looked through him like he was transparent, when they told him his accent was too thick, his appearance too foreign, his presence too threatening for American audiences. When they offered him servant roles and silent henchman parts while white actors with half his talent played martial arts masters in ridiculous wigs. He turned away from his warm-up, walking toward the equipment area. The set didn't stop, didn't pause. 300 people continued their individual tasks, hammering, painting, adjusting, rehearsing. The machinery of filmmaking ground forward with the momentum of a freight train. No one noticed Bruce Lee stepping out of position except Robert Klaus, who frowned, checking his watch. They were already 40 minutes behind schedule. Tommy Chen didn't see Bruce approaching. He was focused entirely on the C-stand, trying to tighten a bolt that kept loosening, threatening to send a $5,000 light crashing to the floor. His supervisor had yelled at him twice already. One more mistake and he'd be sent home. Fired, probably. Back to searching want ads for entry-level positions that didn't exist. "You're forcing it!" The voice came from directly behind him, quiet, calm. Tommy spun around and found himself face to face with Bruce Lee. For a moment, he couldn't process it. Bruce Lee. The Bruce Lee. Standing inches away, looking at him with those intense dark eyes that seemed to see through skin directly into intention. Tommy's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Bruce smiled slightly. "The bolt. You're forcing it. That's why it won't tighten." He gestured toward the C-stand with a small economical movement. May I? Tommy nodded mutely, stepping aside. His heart hammered against his ribs. Around them, the set continued its chaos, but in this small pocket of space, everything had gone silent. A few nearby crew members noticed, elbowed each other, stopped working to watch. Bruce knelt beside the C-stand, examining the mechanism with complete focus. His fingers moved over the metal joints with the same precision they moved through fighting forms, testing, feeling, understanding. See here? He pointed to where the stand's leg connected to the riser. The threading is cross-threaded. You're trying to force metal against metal where it doesn't want to go. The harder you push, the more it resists. He loosened the bolt completely, realigned the pieces, then tightened it again with minimal effort. The stand locked solid. Stable. Perfect. Like fighting, Bruce said, standing up, brushing dust from his hands. Force against force only works if you're stronger. But what if you're not? What if your opponent is bigger, heavier, more powerful? His eyes held Tommy's. You don't force, you redirect. You find the natural path and follow it. Tommy stared at the now stable C-stand, then at Bruce. Thank you, I'm sorry Don't apologize for learning. Bruce's voice carried something deeper than simple reassurance. An authority that came from lived experience, from battles fought in dimensions that had nothing to do with physical combat. Every master was once a student who refused to quit. You think I was born knowing how to do any of this? He gestured at the elaborate set, the cameras, the infrastructure of professional filmmaking. I spent years failing, being rejected, being told I wasn't good enough, wasn't American enough, wasn't white enough. More crew members had stopped working now. A circle formed naturally, drawn by the magnetic pull of Bruce Lee speaking. Robert Klaus lowered his script, listening. The assistant director who'd been about to call everyone back to positions held silent. Tommy found his voice, though it came out rough with emotion he didn't expect. How did you keep going when everyone said no? Bruce considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. Around them, 300 people existed in suspended animation, the entire production halted for this moment. The financial cost didn't matter. Something more important was happening. I stopped asking for permission, Bruce said finally. His voice remained quiet, but it carried across the soundstage with perfect clarity. They said Asian actors couldn't be leading men? I created my own show. They said martial arts wouldn't work on American television? I proved them wrong. They said Hollywood would never give an Asian man a hero role in a major film? He gestured at the set around them, at the cameras, at the Warner Brothers logos on equipment. We're standing in the middle of that never. He turned slightly, addressing not just Tommy, but everyone within earshot. The circle had grown larger. Extras in costume, stuntmen who'd worked with him for weeks, camera operators, sound technicians, all listening. But here's what they don't tell you, Bruce continued. Success isn't the absence of rejection. It's not never falling down. It's falling down 7 times and standing up 8. It's facing people who tell you that you don't belong, that you're not enough, that your dreams are impossible, and proving them wrong not with words but with excellence, with work that speaks so loudly they can't ignore it anymore. The heat inside the soundstage hadn't lessened. The air conditioning still didn't work, but the temperature of the moment had shifted into something else entirely. Something that would be remembered long after the film wrapped, long after the camera stopped. Rolling. Tommy Chen's eyes glistened. He wiped them quickly, embarrassed, but Bruce placed a hand on his shoulder. The gesture was brief, lasting less than 2 seconds, but it carried the weight of brotherhood, of recognition, of one person who'd walked through fire acknowledging another just beginning that journey. You know what your real problem is? Bruce asked, a slight smile playing at his lips. It's not the equipment. It's not your skill level. It's that you're afraid of failing in front of all these people. He squeezed Tommy's shoulder once, then released. But failure is just information. It tells you what needs adjustment. The C-stand wasn't failing, it was teaching you about cross-threading. Your hands weren't failing, they were telling you that you're trying too hard, using force where finesse works better. He stepped back, addressing the full circle now. That's true for all of us. In martial arts, in filmmaking, in life. When something isn't working, forcing it harder rarely helps. You step back. You examine. You find the natural path. You adjust. Robert Klaus cleared his throat from behind the camera. Bruce, we need to. I know. Bruce nodded, already turning back toward the fighting arena. We're behind schedule. We're losing light. We're losing money. He paused mid-stride, looking back at Tommy. But we're not losing people. That's the difference between a production and a family. Productions sacrifice crew members for schedules. Families stop when someone needs help. He walked back to his mark, that casual, confident stride that made him look simultaneously relaxed and ready to explode into action at any microsecond. The circle of watching crew members slowly dispersed, returning to their stations, but something had changed. You could feel it in the air. A collective breath released. A tension dissolved. Tommy Chen stood beside the now stable C-stand, staring at his hands. They'd stopped trembling. Around him, other crew members patted his back as they passed, offered quiet words of encouragement, smiled with genuine warmth. An older lighting technician named Frank, 20-year veteran of film sets, usually gruff and impatient, stopped beside him. Kid, Frank said quietly, I've worked on 50 films, met 100 actors who thought their fame made them gods. Bruce Lee is the only one I've ever seen stop production to help a lighting assistant fix a C-stand. He adjusted his tool belt, cleared his throat with emotion he wasn't quite willing to show. Remember this? When you make it, and you will make it, remember what real leadership looks like. The cameras prepared to roll. Bruce moved through his warm-up again, each strike a blur of controlled power. But before Klaus called action, Bruce caught Tommy's eye across the vast soundstage and gave him a small nod. Just a tiny dip of the head. Nothing dramatic. Nothing performative. It meant, I see you, you're going to be okay. Keep going. Tommy nodded back, straightening his shoulders, returning to his work with hands that now moved confidently, purposefully. The fear had been replaced with something else, something that felt like fuel. Action! Klaus's voice rang out across the set. Bruce exploded into motion. The choreographed fight sequence he'd spent weeks perfecting flowed like water, each movement impossibly fast yet readable, clear, beautiful. He moved through 6 opponents in 45 seconds, strikes, blocks, kicks delivered with precision that made professional stuntmen look slow by comparison. When he finished, landing in a final stance of controlled power, 300 people erupted in spontaneous applause. It wasn't in the script, wasn't planned. But the clapping went on for 20 seconds, and Robert Klaus didn't call cut because he understood that what the cameras had captured went beyond choreography. They'd captured something real. The energy of a man at the absolute peak of his capabilities, working not just for himself but for everyone who'd been told they didn't belong. The production wrapped that night at 2 a.m. Exhausted crew members packed equipment, knowing they'd return in 8 hours to do it again. Bruce Lee stayed late, as he always did, reviewing footage with the editors, planning the next day's shots, adjusting fight choreography frame by frame. Tommy Chen finished packing the lighting equipment and headed for the exit. He passed Bruce in the hallway, expecting the star to be surrounded by executives and assistants. Instead, Bruce stood alone, drinking water from a paper cup, reviewing notes on a script page. Tommy. Bruce looked up as he passed. Tomorrow I want you on the second unit. We're shooting outdoor scenes. Bright sun, harsh shadows, complicated lighting work. You interested? Tommy's throat closed. Second unit meant more responsibility, more visibility, more chance to prove himself. Yes, absolutely, thank you. Don't thank me, earn it. Bruce smiled, but his eyes held that same intensity from earlier. Show up early, ask questions. Make mistakes loudly so everyone can learn from them. Be the person who makes everyone around you better. That's the job. I will, I promise. Bruce nodded, returning to his script. One more thing. He didn't look up. That fear you feel, the one that makes your hands shake when you think you're failing, that never goes away. I still feel it. Before every take, before every interview, before every moment where the world is watching. The difference isn't that successful people stop feeling fear. It's that they stop letting fear make decisions. Tommy stood there for a long moment, absorbing that. Around them, the soundstage descended into the quiet that follows intense labor. Distant sounds of equipment being secured, footsteps echoing, the hum of electrical systems powering down. In that cathedral of creativity, two people, one at the beginning of his journey, one near the peak of his, shared a moment of perfect understanding. Good night, Bruce. Good night, Tommy. Enter the Dragon, released in August 1973. It became the highest-grossing martial arts film of all time, breaking box office records in 37 countries, proving definitively that Asian actors could carry major Hollywood productions. Bruce Lee never saw its success. He died 6 days before the premiere, 32 years old, from a cerebral edema that medicine still struggles to fully explain. The film industry mourned. Fans around the world wept. Critics who dismissed martial arts cinema suddenly discovered its poetry, its philosophy, its cultural significance. Retrospectives appeared in major newspapers. Academic papers analyzed his technique. Museums curated exhibitions. But the real legacy didn't live in box office numbers or critical acclaim. Tommy Chen went on to become one of Hollywood's most respected cinematographers. Over a 40-year career, he shot 27 films, won 2 Academy Awards, and mentored dozens of young Asian filmmakers trying to break into an industry still dominated by the same prejudices Bruce had faced. When asked in interviews about his success, he always told the same story, about a suffocating August day on the set of Enter the Dragon, about a C-stand with cross-threaded bolts, about 90 seconds that changed his life. Bruce Lee taught me that leadership isn't about being the most skilled person in the room, Tommy said in a 2015 retrospective documentary. It's about seeing when someone is struggling and stopping everything, even a multi-million-dollar production, to help them find their path. That's power. Real power. The kind that changes lives. The documentary included footage from that day, grainy behind-the-scenes film shot by a junior camera operator who'd been testing equipment. The footage shows Bruce walking away from his mark, approaching the young crew member kneeling beside the C-stand. The audio is too distant to capture their conversation, but you can see the body language, the circle forming, the production halting. 300 people stopping their work to witness a master teaching a student. Frame by frame, you can see Tommy's shoulders straighten, his hands steady, his expression shift from fear to determination. And you can see Bruce Lee not performing for cameras, not cultivating an image, just doing what came naturally to him, seeing someone struggling and choosing to help. The footage lasts 93 seconds. In those 93 seconds, a C-stand got fixed. A young man found his confidence. A set full of crew members witnessed what authentic leadership looked like. And somewhere in that suffocating warehouse in Hong Kong, a principle crystallized that would ripple forward through decades. Excellence isn't just about what you achieve. It's about who you lift up along the way. But here's the question that footage can't answer. Who are you lifting up? When you reach a level of success, when you gain skill or knowledge or privilege that others don't have, what do you do with it? Do you use it to separate yourself from those still climbing? To build walls between your expertise and their ignorance? To maintain a hierarchy where your value comes from standing above rather than alongside? Or do you stop production? Do you halt whatever you're doing, whatever schedule you're racing, whatever deadline is breathing down your neck, and kneel beside someone struggling with their metaphorical C-stand? Because here's the truth that makes you uncomfortable. You've been that young crew member. You've struggled with cross-threaded bolts while people watched, while time pressured, while fear made your hands shake. Someone stopped to help you. Maybe not as dramatically as Bruce Lee stopping a film production, but someone gave you information, opportunity, patience, grace. You didn't earn your success alone. No one does. Invisible hands steadied you. Voices whispered encouragement. Moments of mercy gave you room to fail and try again. Now you're further along. Maybe not at the peak. Maybe not famous. But further than someone behind you on the same path. Someone watching you work, trying to learn from your example, hoping desperately that you'll notice their struggle. Do you notice? Or do you keep grinding forward, protecting your schedule, your productivity, your carefully managed image of competence? What would it cost you to stop? 90 seconds. That's what it cost Bruce Lee. 90 seconds of a multi-million-dollar production schedule to change one person's trajectory, to model for 300 people what leadership actually means, to plant a seed that would grow into forests. You have 90 seconds right now, today, tomorrow. Every day you move through the world with skills others don't possess. Someone is struggling with their C-stand. They're forcing bolts that don't want to thread. They're on the verge of giving up, assuming they don't belong, that they're not capable, that this path isn't for them. You can see them if you choose to. If you expand your awareness beyond your own immediate concerns, if you remember what it felt like when you were the one trembling beside broken equipment while the world watched. Bruce Lee had every excuse to stay focused on his work. The heat, the schedule, the pressure, the hundreds of people depending on his performance, the studio executives and their expectations, his own exhaustion and the physical demands of what he was doing. But he stopped anyway, not because it was convenient, not because someone asked him to, not because cameras were watching or because it would make him look good. He stopped because seeing someone struggle and doing nothing violated something fundamental in his character. A principle deeper than career, deeper than efficiency, deeper than all the rational reasons to keep moving forward. The principle was simple. We rise by lifting others. That's the lesson that outlived Bruce Lee. That's the wisdom that 300 people carried forward into their own careers. That's the truth that transforms productions into families, co-workers into communities, industries into movements. Your excellence is incomplete until it becomes generosity. Your mastery is hollow until it becomes mentorship. Your success is fragile until it becomes service. 90 seconds. That's all leadership costs sometimes. 90 seconds to stop, to see, to help. 90 seconds to demonstrate that people matter more than schedules, that dignity matters more than efficiency, that the person struggling beside you is carrying the same dreams you carried when you started. 90 seconds to change someone's life. 90 seconds to prove that you learned the lesson Bruce Lee taught on that suffocating August day in Hong Kong. Real power isn't about how high you rise, it's about who you lift on the way up.